Welcome to The Explainer. You know, people often think of math and faith as, well, totally separate worlds, right? One is about cold, hard numbers, and the other is about belief. But today, we're diving into a source that claims a pretty famous number from mathematics might just hold the key to a hidden message in the Quran.
So let's start with this number, 1729. Now, if you're into math at all, you might recognize it, but for most of us, it just looks like any other number. That is, until you find out its secret, a secret that turned it into an absolute legend in the world of mathematics.
It's famously known as the Hardy-Ramanujan number, and there's this amazing story behind it. The mathematician G.H. Hardy was visiting his brilliant colleague, Srinivasa Ramanujan, and he mentioned that the number of his taxi, 1729, was, pretty boring. But Ramanujan immediately shot back that no, it was incredibly interesting. Why? Because it's the smallest number you can get by adding two cube numbers together in two completely different ways.
But what if that's not the whole story? We're here to look at a totally different angle on 1729, an argument that its true significance has nothing to do with the math equation, but is actually encoded inside the sacred text of the Quran.
Okay, so how on earth does a number from a taxi ride in England connect to the Quran? Well, according to the source we're looking at, the answer is hidden in plain sight, right at the very beginning.
It all starts with the very first chapter, Surah Al-Fatiha, which is known as the opening. But instead of reading the words for their meaning, this method treats the chapter's basic structure like, well, raw data, searching for a numerical pattern.
And this is the wild part. You take the chapter number, which is 1. Then you take the number of verses in that chapter, which is 7. And finally, you count the number of words, which is 29. Now, just line those numbers up, 1, 7, 2, 9. You get 1729, the exact same Hardy-Ramanujan number.
But wait, it doesn't just stop there. According to this theory, finding the number isn't the end goal. The number itself is just the key. The real secret is what that key unlocks.
So what happens when we use that key? Well, the next step is to add up the digits of 1729. So, 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9, and that equals 19. Now, 19 might not seem like a big deal at first glance, but in this interpretation, it is absolutely everything.
So, why 19? Because the basmalah, that sacred opening phrase, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, which starts almost every single chapter of the Quran, is composed of exactly 19 Arabic letters. So the argument is that the sum of the digits of 1729 points directly to this foundational phrase.
This all begs a pretty huge question, right? Is this just one mind-blowing coincidence? Or are we getting a little peek into a much larger, hidden system woven into the text?
You know, what's interesting is that this kind of search for hidden connections isn't actually new. It taps into a traditional idea in Islamic theology called munasaba. That's the study of coherence, this deep belief that every single part of the Quran is connected in a beautiful, unified, and meaningful way.
The source we're looking at has a name for this specific approach, a logic lens. The idea is that you're applying a rational, almost mathematical method to the text to try and uncover what's believed to be a hidden divine order.
So that makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this really is a system, if there's a logic lens, then it shouldn't just work on one number. You should be able to apply it to other numbers and find other profound connections, right?
Well, to answer that, let's really put this to the test. Let's take a much less famous and, frankly, much more random-looking number, 76,923.
So, following the same kind of playbook, the source breaks this number down into 3 distinct parts, 7, 69, and 23. And when you add those 3 parts together, you get another number that's incredibly significant.
And boom! The result is 99. Now, for anyone familiar with Islamic theology, the number 99 is a massive signal flare. It's instantly recognizable.
That's because it directly corresponds to one of Islam's most central concepts, the 99 Asma-ul Husna, or the beautiful names of God. These are attributes like the Creator, the Merciful, the Forgiving.
So what's really fascinating here is that these numerical findings aren't viewed as just isolated party tricks. The idea is that they are woven together to tell a larger, coherent story.
The source argues that these codes actually map out a whole theological narrative. It all starts with the premise of creation.
But creation itself creates a condition, a need for divine guidance, which is the Quran. And that guidance ultimately leads to the outcome of divine mercy and the possibility of forgiveness.
Okay, so we've gone through all these numbers and patterns and interpretations. What's the bottom line here? What are we supposed to take away from all this?
Well, what we've really explored here is a method of interpretation that proponents say isn't about random chance. It's about a systematic attempt to decode what they see as a hidden divine language of numbers, one that reveals a coherent message of creation, guidance, and mercy woven right into the fabric of the text.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to think about. Whether you see all this as an incredible mathematical coincidence, an intricate divine design, or simply an act of faith-based interpretation, the search for patterns is something we all do. It's a fundamental part of how we try to find meaning and order in the world around us.